me what generation seems off here on this list, right? Your grandparents are 85, your parents are 60 to 65, and you're not even 25, 26. What's off there? What's missing?
And what you're saying is true, Manville, but even in white families where everyone reproduces at 27, there's still an unwillingness of the young, healthy, vigorous grandparents to give free child care. So what you're saying is true, but I'm saying it's 100% relevant.
And either just look at what's happening in
There was a delay, and the question for like America's future, in the general sense, is how many kids are millennials going to have? Because they've got like 5 to 10 years left, and that's it.
Well, I'll answer you. They're going to have very, very, very few kids, but we'll substitute super highly skilled immigrants. So I'm telling you, the birth rate will shock you and horrify you, but America will do well because we'll just be able to bring in enough super high skilled immigrants.
So Tomato, are you going to adopt like 10 Indian kids who scored really, really high on a placement test and raise them?
I'll answer you, Manville. The reason why most MAGA people have hated me for 5 years is specifically because I have pushed for 1 billion Americans. I've pushed for hundreds and hundreds of millions of super high-skilled non-white immigrants. And the MAGA people, many of the MAGA people want America to stay mostly white, right? And I don't criticize them. They're entitled to want white America. But my vision for America is America will be filled with the smartest, most high-skilled billion people in the world. We'll be a world power. And I'm not here to preserve a white America. That's why the MAGA people disagree with me. Now, at the same time, all the leftists hate me because, in my opinion, leftists want to bring in the stupidest and laziest and most criminal immigrants. That's my view of leftists. So leftists hate me because I don't like leftist immigration policy, and the MAGA people hate me because I don't like the MAGA immigration policy. Okay, I'm done speaking. I'm happy.
Hey, Tomato, I got a quick thing for you. With me in particular, I just spoke a second ago about my parent rentals that I tried to move into the house. With me and my wife, I mean, with our children, we had less kids than our previous generations. My father had 12 siblings. I was the baby of 6. I only have 2 kids because I had less help than the previous generations. But both me and my wife have had long conversations about this, and we're like, we're going to be significant help to our children because of the lack that we have. Do you think that this might be a change in dynamic or thought process for, we'll put it in quotations, for white America? Because, like myself, like I said, I had zero to little help with my children growing up, where I was basically raised by my grandparents. Do you see a demographic change in that?
I think what you're doing is wonderful. I think what you're doing is wonderful. I praise you to the moon. I also think when you and your wife retire, you should consider having some extra kids using IVF and surrogates, right? With today's technology, there's no reason why you can't have 4 kids of your own using surrogates when you retire. And I think what you're doing is great. However, from a broad demographic standpoint, no. The very, very few white people will do what you're doing. Very few white people will help with the kids. And the white birth rate in America, ignoring the super religious white people, the white birth rate in America is going to plummet to less than 1. And you can already see the future of America is already happening in Seoul. In Seoul, the average woman has 0.5 children and dropping. I think that's definitely going to happen to the population in America due to the religious.
Well, the Koreans are dead. Like, no, I don't believe any population in human history has bounced back above a 1.2 or 1.1 ever.
Yeah, you're correct.
In fact, it might even be 1.4.
But the same thing will happen to atheist white people in America. It's guaranteed that the atheist white birth rate will fall to the same level as the birth rate in Seoul.
Yeah, and in that case, there's done, and there's no white people to save.
First of all, white religious people will continue growing rapidly. I only talked about white atheists. Like, man, you all white people together. White people are not a monolith. The super religious white people have a very healthy birth rate, and the non-religious richest ones have a shit birth rate.
Yeah, that's true. You know, on the child raising thing, the thing that I think where people are fucking up is because it's easy to really screw up a kid. It's hard to, you know, just inject a crap load of talent on top on something that's not there. You do a lot of that, you know, when you select your partner. But aside from that, the stay-at-home mom or a grandparent to take care of the kid while you're working instead of like using daycare and after-school programs, that's a huge leg up. The 529 savings plans with prepaid college locking in like lower rates, that's a great option to have in your back pocket. But I think when kids are where they're being led astray is they're kind of not taking on jobs. They're focusing really intently on school. They're going to college and they're kind of exploding with optionality, and they're going into these really you know, interesting but low paying or not paying at all professions where the only real job prospects are like teaching the exact same coursework you just took. And they're sitting there in piles of debt. If you could somehow raise your 14 something year old to be able to just like bag groceries at Publix or whatever grocery store, or have just or a Home Depot cashier, something entry level with a good company that had really good benefits, their retirement, you would have to work 30 years as a doctor in a major metro area to pass that person.
So
The way the market went in the last.
You're correct, but there's already a move in Republican states. You can easily confirm this. There's a move to no longer require college for most government jobs. That is to say, in Republican states, they're eliminating the requirement of a bachelor degree for most government jobs, and instead they're giving an aptitude test. So if you can teach yourself accounting or computer programming or clerking, you can skip college. Now, already today, the percentage of 17-year-old young men going to college is plummeting. Instead, there's already a move into the more lucrative, skilled professions. Not as great as you would like to see. Now, the other thing, and the other thing that is important for you to acknowledge is, yes, from an economic standpoint, college debt is a bad idea. However, there's ample evidence that the experience of living in a college dormitory for 4 years, living in a dormitory with people your own age, is necessary for the development of social skills and emotional skills. So, when they do apples-to-apples comparisons between people who spend 4 years living in the dorm, socializing with people, and people who spend 4 years with their parents, the people who live with their parents for 4 years are pretty fucked up. So, even if you assume, I'll lay on my plate, even if you assume that kids learn in college, that the education is worth nothing, the evidence, which no one in MAGA wants to hear, is living in a dormitory for 4 years is dormant social.
So that's why I'm a huge fan of enacting conscription in the United States. Do a 3-year, before you can go to college, you have to go into military service. That would get you a whole plethora of everything we're trying to look for. Mental health evaluations, gun training, college money, medical treatment for kids over the age of 18 not having to be on parents' health care, as well as just instituting that sense of community.
Yeah, I agree. So 4 years, I would prefer to say 4 years of living in a dorm. So let's say every child in America lives in a dormitory from like 17 to 21. I'm not sure they all need to learn to be in the military officially, and I'm not 100% sure about government service, but I think the evidence is that the kids develop much better if they leave their parents at 17 and live in a dorm. Would you agree to that, or do you think that's an exaggeration?
No, for sure. Being somebody who left and went to the military early on and was able to experience people from outside my social class, outside my general area, being from the Northeast, I was able to experience people from the South, from the West, from Guam, from all over the place, and then visit other places. I think it gives you a mindset that a lot of kids are missing coming straight out of high school, going right into a college, earning an immense amount of debt for something that statistically they're not going to be their final career in. I mean, even me myself, I have a degree in accounting and I'm not doing accounting. You know what I mean? So but yeah, no, if they're going to do something dormitory, military service, something along those lines that gets them off of the tee, so to speak.
I think there's also evidence that the collapse in the marriage rate in the U.S. and it's been an apocalyptic collapse, and the collapse in marriage has preceded the collapse in births. A lot of it has to do with like young people. Young people lack social skills, broadly speaking, compared to people in your generation. So it may be necessary for the survival of America for there to be some program to teach kids between 17 and 21 actual social skills and get them married. Because if you don't, we're going to head for a real collapse, in my humble opinion.
Isn't that why you have a high immigration rate? So that the population of the first world country is not a replacement, has enough people for the country to continue? That was a serious question. I'm not asking about illegal immigrants. I'm asking about, traditional migrants. In that reason, we get traditional migrants in the country.
We spent an hour talking about how high-skilled immigration can rescue America from a low birth rate. So you're correct.
Yeah, but that's not what I asked. I didn't ask about high-skilled immigration. I asked you about immigration, period.
Well,
We didn't spend an hour talking about it, but it did come up, and he asserted that shit. I didn't agree with that. I don't think that's true. To be fair, but it did get broached in the room. That's true. Yeah, I don't know what his answer to your question is going to be, but
Yeah, I don't know what it's going to be either. I'm still very curious, right? Don't most first world nations have immigration programs that at least partially help them deal with the fact that their internal replacement rate is below the number it's supposed to be?
Well, I'll answer you very briefly. I've always advocated 1 billion Americans. And so when I come on Clubhouse and push for 1 billion Americans, that has to imply a very, very high immigration rate, Marshall. There's no other way to math.
1 billion. 1 billion. You want us to get up there with China and India?
Yeah,
You want us to triple our fucking population?
Yeah, and then in fact,
what time frame?
there's a book I posted in the room that's called 1 billion Americans. It's a very sober, clear plan to get to 1 billion.
And what time frame? What time frame?
Over like 3 decades.
30 years? That's you realize that procreation's gotten way down.
Five-figure rents. That's what it is.
Procreation's gotten down significantly. 30 years, you want us to triple our population? That's wild. So that's like 300 million per 10 years, roughly? So that's 30 million a year? We're gonna increase our shit by 30 million a year?
It'd be about 200 million a year. But yeah.
I'll post the book in the room, Chad.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. My math is off, but I don't know.
200 every 10 years.
It's 200 every 10 years?
Yeah, 200 million times 3.
No, it would per year it would be a tenth. It would be a tenth of 200
Yeah,
million,
it'd be 20
which is 20 million.
a year.
Yeah, okay, fine. So my math was not that off, but 20 million a year is incredible.
That's what Joe Biden started.
No, he didn't. It's not true at all. 20 million births. So 20 million more births in a year. Excess births. That's crazy.
Yeah, you know what you're talking about. But it discussed the implications of the cultural, religious, other aspects of foreigners coming to this country. Does it talk about those times, for example, from mother community, women, and so how would this impact the American culture, whatever you want to define it, what the impact of the book that you talked about this?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of good impact. The number one positive impact is we would be militarily safe, right? Because the reason it makes us militarily safe is China has all these smart people building AI and robotic systems. If we open up the immigration system so that every single smart Chinese young person moves here, China doesn't have the force of engineers to oppose us militarily. So if you just do the, you start by letting in the most skilled engineers in the world, it cripples our enemies and it makes our military stronger without us having to spend money. That's the first way of it.
On this childbirth thing, which I'm more interested in, what you're talking about, is like as of 2023, we were birthing like 3.6 million babies, so north of a million babies a year. To get to 20, you're gonna have to multiply that approximately sevenfold. And it's so significant of an increase that like literally we would have to we'd have to set up a lot of like pregnancy services and all of the hospital beds that these women would need and all of the like prenatal wards and all of that shit. Like we'd have to multiply those things a lot. Like we'd have to probably take some time to actually build the infrastructure in order to even have that many children in a year.
All true, but during the baby boom era, when America was growing stronger, we did have a pronatal culture, and the book is very persuasive that, look, I don't expect, there's a lot of racists. If you want America's racial balance to stay the same forever, you can't have that high level of immigration. But if you truly don't care about race, if you truly believe in America with all the smartest people in the world living in America, and you can ignore race, it's quite achievable for us to have 1 billion people.
But not in 30 years, that's not realistic at all.
Well, that has something to do with a lot of the approachable things that we have in the country that people come here for. I'd be interested in thinking, Tomato, what would be your thought process on our higher level institutions requiring citizenship or naturalizations for attendance? That would actually open up more opportunity for citizen students to attend these higher education institutions, and also pull in more of those high value new patriots from other countries. If we're like, hey, you can go to Harvard, you can go to Yale, you need to be naturalized or a citizen or a child of, as opposed to bringing in people from the Emirates, from Europe, who are coming here, getting that school, and then bringing that knowledge or that mental equity that they're getting from our country and bringing it back to those other countries.
Well, I'll answer you very briefly. America's number one crisis over the next 20 years is China beating us in AI and robotics and military technology. Like we are under threat of being defeated by China all over the world because of the huge number of high skilled people they have. So if you love America and you're an American patriot and you don't give a fuck about race, it just seems obvious to me that we should invite every single super smart, super skilled young Chinese to move here. And imagine if the 200 million smartest young Chinese engineers all left China and moved here. Like China would be fucked and we would be safe from them defeating us. Now, on the other hand, if the racists win, make no mistake, the racists want to let in no Chinese immigrants. Well, if you leave those smart people in China, they will eventually build weapons and fuck up. So, in my view, if you love America, let the Chinese in. And then Chinese and start thinking about letting in lots of other smart people. And in particular, prioritize immigrants who are smart from countries that may become our rivals. If you steal the smart people away from other countries, they can't be our rivals. I'm not speaking in
to counter that, I'll be real quick, to counter that, to make room for all these super incredibly genius level people from China or even India, or arguably some of the top tech coding engineers come from. Well, we got to make room over here. So that means we got to start testing some of the dum-dums in this country and see if they are cut the mustard. If whatever aptitude test we come up with, if you don't cut the mustard, off you go to El Salvador.
Well, you say that as a laughable thing, but I think high school students should absolutely be able to pass the same test in immigration. People will have to come through the immigration process too. So I think that's absolutely true.
And by the way, the baby boomer was 4 million. Baby boomer at its peak was only 4 million per year in the 50s.
So I reject the idea that there's not physical space. I mean, if you go to cities all over Texas, the rate of apartment building construction is so high that you have places where the population is growing by tens of thousands, and people get along just fine, especially with the implementation of self-driving cars. I don't know how many people here have used Waymo, but once all the cars are self-driving in 10 years, you can easily have a lot more people getting around without traffic jams. So I reject this narrative that letting more people in America makes it shittier. I just reject the idea that we don't have space for hundreds of millions of people. I think we do. And there could still be parts of America that are rural. Like maybe you could have Montana and Vermont stay rural forever, but most of America can build apartment buildings and become the hyperpower with the building.
We don't have the infrastructure to support 1 billion people as it stands right now, status quo. We'd have to really upscale our infrastructure in a lot of different ways. I'm talking about from like how much food we grow to like how many houses are built, how many schools there are. Like all of our infrastructure would have to dramatically increase in order to support comfortably that amount of people without dooming the majority of them to some kind of poverty.
That's all true, but if you Google it, you'll see already today in the suburbs of Boston, there are 4 companies using robots to build apartment buildings. And it's easy to confirm all 4 companies with current robotics technology. You're looking at being able to build apartment buildings with 80% less human labor than you need now. So the idea that there's a shortage of apartments,